All right, here we go. I had a few topics I wanted to talk about tonight on my midnight vlog, my sleeplessness vlog. I think that's what I can call it. A video I record where I just get a bunch of thoughts that I'm thinking about out of my head by expressing them in a hopefully articulate manner. Of course, the thoughts have changed since I've prepared this video. Now the thoughts are more like, I'm tired, we need to go to bed. And my heart is sorrowing because I am not listening instead of actually processing these things and being able to articulate them. Right. So I was watching, well, I think I'm going to save that for another video, but I was watching this show, very good story. It's a thrill ride. It's up and down and up and down. It's beautiful and it's traumatic all at the same time. Well, in different parts, different sequences. And I was thinking about Star Wars and how that was kind of a thrill ride. And then I was thinking about good stories in general and how they're up and down and up and down, and they're beautiful and they're traumatic and they're just all sorts of emotions. And I was thinking about sharing good stories and why we share stories and why people want to share stories. And then I was thinking about why I wanted to share stories as a kid. And the difference between my pathological desire for attention and to seem relevant and the childlike, genuine desire for other people to partake of the same sweet fruit that I have partaken of. I think it's like, how it's said, what's good for you should be good for those around you, and what's good for those around you should be good for your community, and so forth, recursively. Selfishness and selflessness are really part of this, two halves of the same coin. And I think that this is an important topic because people get hung up on what's selfish versus selfless. People constantly want to be seen as selfless, but that is selfish. But here's the catch. Here's where things go where you wouldn't expect them to. What if it didn't matter whether you were selfish or selfless? What if those things by themselves weren't good or evil, but it's what you do with your selfishness and selflessness that is either more destructive or more creative? Either more conducive to evil or conducive to good. And this kind of goes hand in hand with my thoughts on the Sith and how Sith use their power versus how Jedi use their power. The Jedi, as Anakin puts it, use their powers selflessly, only for good, They care only about others, not themselves. And Palpatine points out, but they seek power nonetheless. And that furthers themselves. They're both right. They're both wrong, because they're both missing something. And also the Jedi from the Old Republic just aren't a really good example of Jedi anyways. So, besides Qui-Gon, and other shining examples. Most of the Jedi had lost their connection, or they lost their connection to being guided by the Force. They allowed politics to calm them into complacency and run their agendas, which is why there's still slavery in the Outer Rim. Anyways, so Jedi are often seen as selfless, and Sith are often seen as selfish. It's like, okay, well, who's more good? Well, I think we'd say the Jedi are more good, right? Because they don't destroy things intentionally. They don't let their anger turn into vengefulness. And they choose not to let vindictive pathologies compel them to destroy whatever it is that happens to get in their way. Now, the Old Republic Jedi were extremely flawed because they were dogmatic. And they stopped taking responsibility for their connection to the Force and began trusting in politicians and began to become complacent and let law and order dictate what was right and what was wrong, as opposed to what was right and what was wrong dictating law and order. So yeah, I mean, they tried their best. They were destroyed. But we should use a better example of Jedi, I think. We should use the new Jedi Order. When Luke creates the new Jedi Order, he doesn't have access to a lot of Jedi material. He only has a few holocrons that he's scrounged up and some old works, but he spends most of his time, building his academy, building his Praxium on Yavin by searching the galaxy for information on what it means to be a Jedi. And the interesting thing about this is that he's the only one that can really find out what it means to be a Jedi, because he was the only true Jedi from the beginning of this era of Jedi. What I mean by that is in episode 6 he forgives his father and redeems Anakin Skywalker, his father, from being Darth Vader, even though Darth Vader did terrible things. So what it means to be a Jedi is understanding or at least, I guess, using your ability to understand things and using your conscientiousness to navigate complex situations, complex moral problems, to find the truth that may not be seen by either side. And here's something we knew about Darth Vader. He killed a lot of people, including children. Half the galaxy saw him as evil, while the other half saw him as a war hero. And he saw himself as neither. I'd say maybe he saw himself as a victim. Maybe fluctuating between a victim and not worthy of being good. And, of course, rage and anger at everyone else for, you know, causing things to be the way that they are, and he projected that through his delusions into thinking that he was bringing order to the galaxy by destroying all the weakness. So Vader's life is complicated. Anakin's life is complicated. His upbringing shows us that he was good at some point. That, and not only was he good, but he was virtuous. He had a very good heart. He had a big heart. And he wanted to do all these good things in spite of his terrible circumstance. But being taken into a dogmatic religious cult and being told to ignore half of what it means to be human, and then also being told to ignore your dreams of doing all the good things that you think you should be doing, like freeing slaves, you know, and then like being withheld from, you know, human affection and all this stuff. Like, okay, it messed him up quite a bit. And he goes insane the minute he finds something that fills that hole that was left in him by the death of his mother, and the dying dream of being a hero that frees the slaves, and you know, the dying dream of being a great Jedi, because as it turns out, the Jedi aren't that great. And if the Jedi aren't that great, then why does he want to be a Jedi, you know? They get pushed around like tools and told to go on political missions that don't really seem to have any good results, and so he loses it when his wife, the one thing that he thinks is good in his life, is gonna die in his dreams. And so, yeah, you know, that's an examination of what it takes to turn a good person into a monster. Is you just take away all their good. You make all their attempts of doing good appear fruitless. Make them dependent on some external sense of good or safety. And then take that away too. And then they will be like an animal. And they will do anything. And so, you know, Vader, you know, hated himself, hated the galaxy, hated Palpatine, but he was too much of a victim to do anything about any of it, except follow this delusion that he was a slave to the dark side, and that he had to bring order to the galaxy to fulfill some deluded sense of virtue. Because he still had that need for it after all, even if it was very diluted. So Luke is his son, and Luke, in spite of all the evil his father has done, you know, has faith that there is a greater plan or a greater awareness that he does not quite possess, and that it doesn't matter what evil Vader has done. What matters is that there's still good in him. And also it matters to really believe that there's always still good in someone. Which is something that the new Disney trilogy seemed to forget about Luke's character, but that's okay. But yeah, that's why he was the last the last of the Jedi Knights. Not just any, religious guy or person that wore the garb, had the lightsaber, maybe was raised in the tradition, maybe had some training in the tradition. Like, he's not just anyone, not just any Jedi, He's the last true Jedi. He's the last one that has the faith in the Force, and the faith and the goodness of people. Even evil people like Vader. Or not evil people, but people that have done much evil. And so he is given that responsibility of caring for the next generation of Jedi. And that's why he has to be the Grand Master. Because he was the last true Jedi, and he's the only one that can really find out, what it means to be a true Jedi, because he's already really it. And so it's a matter of just filling in historical background and articulating, that. And he spends the greater part of the rest of his life doing that process of articulation. With hiccups along the way, but wow, why did I go on that tangent? I'm trying to remember what I was talking about originally to point it back to. It's okay, true Jedi, right? True Jedi. I have my notes right here. So true Jedi aren't the Old Republic Jedi. The New Jedi Order, that is made of true Jedi. Jedi that are imperfect openly. It's most of the Jedi of the New Jedi Order, especially the older members of the Council, were not always true Jedi. That they were, one was an ex-stormtrooper officer, mercenary, went to the dark side for a bit. The other one blew up a solar system and killed millions of people, and war crimes. Maybe, I don't know. Was it a crime? Was there a law there? I don't know. But it was bad, and that's what matters, not the fact that it's a war crime. Oh, not to mention, the Emperor's hand herself, Mara Jade, it's yeah. Lots of imperfect people with dark pasts. I think that's a very interesting parallel between the story of Christ and his disciples and the Jedi Order of the New Jedi Order. Is that there's this person who believes in love and the power of love, and people start to realize that power can transform them, and it does, and then they follow them. It's okay, Kip Duran is no longer a war criminal. He's no longer a murderer. He forgave himself, which is a very difficult thing to do. I think people sell to themselves that people aren't capable of punishing themselves. And the reason for that is because they don't believe that there's goodness in people. It's where would the goodness be that would punish them? Where's the justice, right? They need evidence. They need evidence that they can observe. It's easier to observe someone going to prison than observing the inner turmoil of self-punishment. Now these things related to that are, of course, blame and shame, which are forces of the dark side. Blame and shame do not build a good society. They destroy societies. They are conducive to evil, not to good. So when people blame each other and shame each other, they are lashing out in fear because they do not have the understanding that there is good in people. And so they do not believe that those people are capable of being good or changing to do good. And so to settle to remove the existential dread of having that unresolved question about the nature of mankind, they would rather have an outside solution summarize the answer for them, even if it is not true, than spend much time with great introspection, self-reflection, awareness, to come to the true conclusion. Because it's difficult, and oftentimes they are given many pathologies that would otherwise, that usually see that kind of introspection as a threat. This here day and age, this oversaturation of information. Yeah. Love for sharing things, yada yada. Okay, so when I was a kid, I loved Star Wars, and I loved to share it with people. And this ties into selfishness versus selflessness, which is what ties into Jedi versus Sith, which is what ties into where morality's jurisdiction ends, but virtue's jurisdiction begins. And how there is a assumption about life that governs people's relationship to morality. And that assumption is that we must blame people. Actually, no, that's not the assumption. My smooth brain, on its last few midichlorians, summarized a very hefty piece of thought as that's not what I meant to say at all. That is what my exhausted brain wants me to finish up with, because I'm so tired I need to go to bed. The assumption is that we aren't good. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that's the assumption. That's one assumption, maybe. I think there's a few assumptions people might have. But one of the assumptions is that people aren't good. And their hearts, of course, know better. But their fight or flight instinct is in the way of that. That realization. Which is why you should all do copious amounts of DMT and other psychedelics to have an instant awakening where your brain all of a sudden realizes how little it knows. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Talk to your doctor before doing ketamine. By the way, I'm thinking of doing ketamine treatment. I think that might help speed things along. In my pursuit of self-understanding and healing. maybe it will. Maybe it will speed things along. I don't know. I've never done drugs before. And definitely not psychedelics. So yeah, there's a treatment center, Idaho Falls. Thinking about going there. So what do you think about that? Have any of you guys done psychedelics? You, my viewers, if I have any. At this point still, all the way through the video. At the very end, where most people would have stopped watching by now. That's alright. These videos aren't for you, they're for me. Is that selfish or what? I don't know. We'll see. Whether it's a good or bad thing, I think that's what's important. And I think there's definitely merit to me monologuing. Is that a alliteration? Merit to me monologuing. I could put that as a thing that people put things as. Okay, last midichlorian is about to fritz out. Because I haven't slept for a day. And a night. And another day. And half another night. So good night.